Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Sunday morning to you all. Happy New Year to you all. Hope you guys are having a great start to your day and a great start to your year. Got you a big update this morning talking about what's coming tomorrow. And of course, we'll give you a daily update towards the end of the video. But we're in the beginning of this video, we're going to really focus in on what's going on tomorrow. There's a severe weather event. There's the start of a winter storm tonight. The winter storm is going to be a pretty big deal too, guys. We're going to have an ice storm along it, kind of on the warmer side of it, if you will, kind of more warm air aloft, just creating more of an icy scenario for certain areas, and it could be a lot of ice. So we need to talk about that. But of course, tonight we'll get much more detailed. We'll zone in on individual regions like states and things like that. Of course, I won't be able to talk about every single state, but we'll get as detailed as I can and try to at the same time make the video time efficient. But we'll get detailed tonight, but we're going to get detailed in this video also and try to keep you guys ahead of this storm, because this is going to be a big time system with an enhanced risk, a level 3 out of 5 for severe storms across areas of the South tomorrow. But if you folks have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And if you folks got anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put those in the comments below and I'll pray over them, and others will do so too. So hope you guys are having a great start to the new year. Got some awesome goals to set. Just my advice as a 31-year-old would be to just keep building off momentum and motivation. A lot of people get these quick sparks of motivation and then they fade, and then their goals fade. Just keep building on it. Just tackle each day-to-day basis. I've learned that just in my short time on earth, that when I get a burst of motivation, to me internally, I know it's going to fade, right? Whether I'm trying to work out, whether I'm trying to just be better, whatever it may be. But just look at each individual day and build off that, and then beat that, and then get to the next day, and then find another way to get motivated. So there's my 2 cents on that. But it's always rejuvenating. The start of a new year is always very rejuvenating. Something about it is just, it feels like a fresh start at hand. But hope you folks are having a great start to your new year. But let's talk about the weather here. Our system has already entered the West Coast. This is our upper trough, mid-level upper trough that's digging, and you're going to have a shortwave impulse that's going to fire off the Rockies, go across the central and northern high plains. This is going to pull a lot of low-level moisture into the air. You can actually kind of see it right into here. It's going to be very hard to see on your screen. But anyways, it's already pulling. It's already been pretty humid across the South over the last several days, but it's going to pull some real true low-level rich moisture across the deep South tomorrow, with dew points well into the 70s along the Gulf Coast and well into the mid to upper 60s as far north as Arkansas. And Arkansas is going to be the epicenter for the nastiest weather today. For the cold side, it's going to bring a lot of moisture up here. And there's going to be some warm air aloft, so this is actually going to create a corridor of some nasty ice, along with just north of that some pretty heavy snow. I'm not talking about several feet of snow or a couple feet of snow, but certain areas could certainly get a foot of snow. So let's get rolling here. Watches and warnings. You got a lot of winter storm warnings up for the pink. Winter storm watches up for this tealish blue color right here. So haven't quite had enough confidence to upgrade this to a warning, but by the time some of you folks watch this, a lot of these areas will be upgraded to a warning. But this does include a big city like Minneapolis that could have some heavy snow, maybe even some ice, starting tomorrow into tomorrow night into the next day. But you see all these grays, there's a lot of fog, and that's just because we have a lot of moisture. If it's not raining at your location, and 99% of you folks are not seeing rain, it's just damp and foggy. And that's just because we're in a pattern in the east where we have a ridge in place, and normally when that's the case, in the winter, we have a lot of dampness, and it's just more damp and wet depending on your location, and there's a lot of low-level moisture that's just kind of built into the region. It's just above average temperature-wise, and it's just not a wintry pattern across the east right now. But moving forward here, we'll go on and start to move into the threat tomorrow. And like I said, if you're wondering what the weather's going to do for today, stay tuned. I'll talk about it. I'm not going to break down each region, but today's going to be an incredibly quiet day for almost all of the country except the West. But we'll break it down, but definitely just a quiet day ahead of a big day tomorrow. And enhanced risk. This includes not quite the Dallas. There's going to be a mean cutoff, a good cutoff if you're in Texas, where storms will really get going in far northeast Texas and then really track and then continue to redevelop and just develop in general into Arkansas where you have a enhanced risk for Little Rock. Memphis, just a slight risk. An enhanced risk is a level 3 out of 5. Moderate risk is a 4 out of 5. High risk is a 5 out of 5. So this isn't the highest threat, and we hope that this doesn't uptrend. But for now, it is a dangerous enhanced risk. And for tornadoes with this, you have a 10% risk of seeing a tornado within 25 miles in any given location, basically in that enhanced risk, in this yellow area right into here. I'll zone into all these regions tonight. So if you're having a hard time seeing it, just know big cities like Shreveport, Little Rock, and in any areas in between. There's not only a 10% risk to see a tornado, there's also a 10% risk to see a significant tornado. And that is basically an EF2 or higher. That's when you really start to get some, catastrophic damage and things like that. But the 5% risk kind of surrounds it like it always does. And that includes Memphis, Tennessee, down to Alexandria, Louisiana, almost to Dallas, got down to Lufkin, Texas, not quite to Tulsa. We'll see if this expands or shrinks. But there is going to be a wind threat. There's going to be a 30% risk to see winds pushing 50 knots or higher in this red area. Same area as the enhanced risk. That's basically 55 to 60 mile per hour winds in any individual area, 25 miles in any given location. The hail threat will be there, especially if any individual supercells can get going. But I reckon this will probably be the least threat out of the main three here. But there will be a risk of hail, especially if we can get a supercell mode going, which we hope we do not, because if that happens, then more of a tornado risk will be here. So really what's driving this is just this rich sector of moist air and good old pivotal weather. I love when it does this. Let's go on and get the icon going here. And we'll go on and start off around tomorrow morning. You're waking up and it's very humid as far north as Dallas. Houston, dew points are in the 70s. New Orleans, Baton Rouge, dew points in the upper 60s, close to 70. Even Shreveport, Little Rock, the humidity's building in. And as we get into the late morning hours, into the early afternoon hours, dew points well into the 70s down here. And dew points into the 60s as far north as the Quad States regions. Southern Missouri, you're climbing into the 60s and all of eastern Oklahoma. All of Arkansas well into the 60s with dew points, and that's just an ingredient for the severe weather. You look at that and you mix that with a mixed layer cape, and what does that do here? And let's make sure I'm on the right graph. Let's skip ahead, and we'll go all the way to the event. And we're looking at the HRRR model, by the way, and we'll go all the way to the time of day where it looks like the severe weather is the worst, which is probably late afternoon into the evening, even into the overnight hours. That's the dangerous part of this, as this looks like it's going to really pop off after the sun goes down. But if you look at the latest long-range HRRR model, I wouldn't even say it's the latest because the 12Z is running right now. I tried to wait, but it was just taking too long, guys, and I wanted to get this video out this morning. But I'll stop it right here and look at the CAPE levels from the HRRR model, almost getting to 10,000. Ooh, we don't want that. 2,000 joules per kilogram just east of Dallas. And there's a lot of rocket fuel for these severe storms to really build off of. But the forcing really gets going, meaning the development of these storms kind of outside of this region into this area right here. And we watch kind of what happens. And the best kinematics are further north, meaning the wind energy, basically the turning with height. How fast is the winds moving the further you go up in the atmosphere above our heads, and how much is it veering with height? How much is it turning with height? That the best kinematics is always going to be closer to that low pressure, but that's where the worst thermodynamics is. As you lose that low level moisture, you lose the temperatures the closer you get to the low pressure, which is well up here at this point. But at this point, you got a lot of CAPE down here, sure, but you're lacking forcing. So you're not having big time storm development down here. But up here, as you're getting into Arkansas, there's just enough CAPE, reaching anywhere from maybe 1,000 to maybe 1,200 joules per kilogram. And then, Louisiana, you're well above that threshold that these storms need for CAPE. But we'll have to see the latest HRRR models running now. We'll see if this increases the CAPE in this area, and it might. And we can actually kind of do this on the fly here and see how far. And we're 24 hours out, so we can actually go about, like I said, 24 hours out. But this still only takes us to around this time tomorrow. But you see the CAPE building tomorrow into this region. But this is tomorrow morning, so we don't really. We're not in view of the real big time frame, which is tomorrow afternoon, evening, and overnight for this to happen. But Like I said, we can only look at the 06Z HRRR model. We'll see how this develops and their snow starts to break out right here. And we'll talk about the winter weather side of this here in a second. But snow starts to break out early tomorrow morning in western areas of Nebraska, even a small section of far northwest Kansas could get a little bit of winter weather, but we'll see. And you already can tell there's a lot of scattered convection. I think this will help to limit any big time daytime heating. A lot of cloud cover in Arkansas, Louisiana, eastern Texas. I think if you did not have this scattered convection early in the morning, which this is around 10 a.m. right here, see all these little spots right here of green? That's just scattered showers. Then this severe weather threat could be worse. But look at all the ice. We won't talk about this yet. We'll talk about this here in a second. But there's a lot of ice developing right here in Nebraska. I always want to mix Nebraska up with Kansas. But look at the storms developing in Arkansas, Louisiana, eastern Texas. And they just look congealed. Nothing really breaks out into a supercell mode, which we like to see. We can take the damaging wind threat and over the tornado threat. You don't want to take the tornado threat over the damaging wind threat, because I know damaging wind threats can be really bad, but at the same time, tornado outbreaks are certainly things that we worry about more. But I mean, we're getting into about 7 p.m. at this range, and we still got nasty storms moving out of eastern Oklahoma into Arkansas at this point. And I really think as we get into like the 10 to 11 p.m. midnight range tomorrow night, we start to really develop a nasty damaging wind threat into Arkansas and northern Louisiana, places like that. But we'll see. Let's go and zone in for this area. And like I said, this is for tomorrow about midday for Arkansas and surrounding sections of each state. A lot of scattered convection, even some rumbles of thunder early on. And this is going to be an all-day event. We start to get to about 3 p.m. Little Rock right here, Shreveport into here, Dallas, Fort Worth area over here. You got Jackson over here, Memphis right here. If you're just confused about where you are on the map, just trying to give you some pointers. I wish this map showed actual cities, but it does not. But you already got some storms moving over Little Rock. I don't think these are going to be really the big-time severe ones, but they could. But as we're getting into the evening hours, this is around late afternoon. This is, around 5 p.m. But this is going to change. This is just trying to give us an idea of how these storms are going to look. You watch out for these, and like this is going to be the worst area right into here. So it makes sense that the HRRR model's trying to print some supercells just west of Little Rock or southwest of Little Rock. And you watch out for these little individual cells. There's going to be storm chasers out here trying to do what they do and storm chase these. But I can tell you, Arkansas has some rough terrain. I mean, you got the mountains, the Ozarks up here, and it's definitely heavily forested, especially even in I don't think people realize how heavily forested areas like eastern Texas is, especially northeast Texas. Once you get east of Dallas, I mean, it is heavily wooded area. But the HRRR model, once you're starting to get into kind of the evening hours around 6 7 p.m. Around dinner time, a lot of just scattered convection everywhere. Any of these could be producing a tornado or damaging winds. But then you watch, and the HRRR model really wants to develop a kind of a congealed or this semi-discrete line of storms initially, and then this moves through Arkansas, and this would even bring and for you folks watching for Illinois, Indiana, I'm going to get detail with you guys region also. Y'all do have a risk for severe weather up here too, but it's not high. You're really lacking what we call thermodynamics, meaning the temperatures at the surface, dew points at the surface, and the Cape levels. You're really lacking that up here. So I really think you could just have really just a lot of heavy rain. But, the HRRR model has a pretty, it looks like a pretty strong line of storms making it all the way into southeast Missouri. And this is as far out as we can go right here. And this looks like it's about to enter southern Illinois and even areas of Kentucky if we were to keep this frame going as we're getting into Tuesday morning. So significant day tomorrow. Let's hope that it just doesn't materialize. Like I said, we'll take the damaging wind threat over the tornado threat, but we'll see how this happens. But we do know the low-level moisture is going to be here. We just kind of showed you this, but this is going to build into the area. There's going to be plenty of rich moisture into this area tomorrow. Dew points well into the 60s and even 70s in certain areas. We do have a severe weather threat for tomorrow. I'm sorry, for Tuesday. There's just a slight risk, and I think you're just lacking forcing here. But I do think you can have a damaging wind threat and isolate with a few tornadoes are possible. And really at this point, this is probably, I think this will be ongoing more so in the early morning hours, probably in this region. But I think some storms will refire around Birmingham Tuesday. But I don't think this is going to be a huge deal, but we'll see. We'll see. But I think the low pressure is going to be too far north. You're going to be lacking forcing. But I think any storms that do form, there'll be plenty of low level moisture and some damaging winds, and maybe an isolated tornado could pop up. And we'll see how this develops. The winter weather side of this, we'll look at the latest short range Euro, latest information. And the Euro had the right idea all along with the placement of low pressure. The GFS kind of trended towards the Euro, but we'll start this off tomorrow morning. Snow breaking out, and I think the snow would be a little bit further south, probably, if you base it off. No, it has the right idea. Once again, getting Nebraska and Kansas switched up. Nebraska right here, Mitch. Come on. But you got a heavier area of snow moving into western Nebraska, southwest South Dakota, and it becomes heavy. And, this won't necessarily be a long duration event, but there will be some heavy precipitation with it, meaning heavy snow in the colder areas. But what you got to watch out for is as we're getting into Monday afternoon, this corridor of ice that gets really close to Omaha. And then this starts to spread into areas of northern Iowa. And I really think some rain could switch into freezing rain, eventually probably maybe some backside snow. And, I mean, this low pressure, this is as deep a low pressure. I mean, at this point, it's a 994 low pressure around basically in the middle of the night tomorrow night. You got heavy snow falling as far southwest as western Kansas. You got some sleets and freezing rain, but it's freezing rain in this purple. And this is a lot of freezing rain. Minneapolis right in here, it looks like you're snowing at this point, but then some freezing rain and sleet can make it into your area as you're waking up Tuesday morning. This is going to be a pretty powerful winter storm. But and some ice for areas that certainly don't see a lot of ice in winter. Normally it's just all snow, but this is going to bring a lot of warm air aloft, but still going to be sub-freezing at the surface, meaning you get what you call a warm nose in the atmosphere, and it just melts those snowflakes, turns it back into liquid, but at the surface it's still 30 degrees, so it's going to freeze once it gets to the surface. We'll talk a little bit more on that tonight if that's a little bit confusing to you. And I understand it took me a while to figure it out too. But low pressure right here, just bringing good old-fashioned rain for southern areas of Iowa, Illinois, Wisconsin, just seeing rain at this point as we're waking up Tuesday morning. And but just like I said, just this corridor of ice right here. We keep this rolling here, and then you lose that warm air aloft, and you switch to all snow. And like I said, Omaha, you might go from rain to sleet, freezing rain, and then some backside snow as you're making your way into your Tuesday afternoon. And then everybody switches to snow and might end as a pretty big burst of snow for areas in Minneapolis as you're getting into late Tuesday evening. And then this moves off and kind of just stalls and just gets shunted actually to the east. And we got to watch this system because it drifts to the east and does some funky stuff that might deliver a little bit of snow for the northeast. We'll talk about that once we get past this. But as far as snowfall totals from the latest blend of all models, there's going to be a corridor of foot-plus totals from South Dakota, maybe even areas of northwest Nebraska. And then I think some areas could get a foot of snow in areas of south-central Minnesota. And then northern Wisconsin could certainly see 6 to 12 inches of snow, depending on where you are. And then the areas of the UP and Michigan, especially the UP and Michigan, certainly could see several inches of snow. But it's going to be a tight cutoff. It's just going to be a corridor of very heavy snow. It's more wide out here in the west than it is to the east. But one thing I'm really concerned about is this ice. And this is ice from the National Weather Service. I mean, it looks like Omaha has kind of saved the worst of the ice, but still a solid glaze of ice as possible. Just north of Omaha into northern sections of Iowa, southern sections of Minnesota, they're calling for a quarter to a half inch of ice. That is destructive ice. That's ice that could really snap these power lines and these tree limbs, and icicles become really long off your house. But this could be a lot of ice. Minneapolis right in here, but the ice is really significant just south of you. But you look at Wisconsin, we'll go a little bit further east, and this is a lot of ice showing up for central Wisconsin. Anywhere from a tenth to a quarter inch of ice. But look at this nasty ice down here. So we need to watch out for this. This is a bigger deal than what I think is being discussed. And like I said, I know you guys get freezing rain up there, but probably more so it's snow this time of the year than freezing rain. But we'll get much more detailed on this tonight. I mean, there's not much more detail you can get from this. Is the legit National Weather Service calling for this. But today's forecast, guys, there's not a lot to speak on. There's some snow working its way through northern Michigan. By the time some of you folks watch this will be done and over with. But outside of that, we work through our rest of our day all the way until tomorrow morning. And then that's when our big system starts to get cranked up right here. But outside of that, pretty quiet day. Temperatures, you're going to have a lot of clouds. So you see these 60s and 70s across the south, even 80s. But a lot of areas are going to have a lot of cloud cover, unfortunately. I wish we could get these nice temperatures and get rid of the cloud cover. But in a lot of areas, it's going to remain damp, kind of cloudy, but not everywhere. You're going to get some peaks, some sunshine, but very warm temperatures if you're a warm weather fan. And hopefully we don't have this long, guys. And I only say this because in the south, once you get about 2 weeks of warm weather, it's kind of psychs out these yards, and the weeds start to pop up, and then it's like your yard begins to wake up again, thinking it's spring. And yeah, that's just luckily here in South Carolina, for example, we had pretty much a true winter. It got cold the time of the year where it's supposed to get cold. This has already been kind of a weird winter where it just got really, really cold in late December, and here we go warming up in January. Last year, it got decently cold in January, where we had 2 or 3, 4 weeks in a row where we had wintry weather chances across areas of the east. And to me, that's normally the time frame, climatology-wise, where we normally see it. But we'll have to see what happens this year. We don't want all this warm air because, that means probably the mosquitoes are going to be terrible in the south, getting as early as April. But anyways, pretty chilly day across the Ohio Valley, but I mean, nothing compared to this time of the year. It's January 1st. I mean, you could be much worse. Could be much worse in the Northeast. Even could be much worse in areas of the north central U.S. But that's all I got, guys. I'll have you a much more detailed video tonight. God bless everybody. Have a great first day of the year, and I'll talk to you soon.